He is emotionally unshakable, and that is where everything begins, not with strength in the physical sense, but with mastery over the inner world. Most people are governed by reaction. A word triggers them, a tone unsettles them, a moment of silence makes them anxious. They are, in essence, externally controlled. But this man operates differently. He has observed his own emotional patterns, confronted them, and gradually detached from the need to react impulsively. What makes this powerful is not coldness, but awareness. He feels everything. He simply refuses to be ruled by it. When faced with provocation, he pauses. When confronted with manipulation, he does not rush to defend himself. He understands that every reaction is an investment of energy, and he spends that energy with precision. This creates a kind of psychological gravity around him. People begin to sense that they cannot easily predict or control him. For a narcissistic personality, this is deeply unsettling. They rely on emotional reactions to maintain dominance. Your anger, your need to explain, your attempts to be understood. But when those reactions are absent, when the expected emotional script is broken, something shifts. The dynamic no longer belongs to them. It becomes ambiguous, uncertain, and that uncertainty breeds obsession. This man does not silence himself out of fear. He chooses silence because it is more powerful than noise. He does not withdraw because he is weak. He withdraws because he sees no value in unnecessary engagement. In doing so, he reclaims control, not over others, but over himself. And that is the only control that truly matters. Over time, this emotional discipline becomes his identity. He is no longer reacting to life, he is directing it. And in a world addicted to instant emotion and constant validation, that kind of self-possession is rare, almost magnetic. Because in the end, the man who cannot be emotionally controlled is the man who cannot be forgotten. He has standards, not attachment, and that distinction changes everything. Most people confuse connection with dependency. They believe that to care deeply, they must hold tightly. But what they call attachment is often a quiet form of fear. The fear of losing, of being alone, of not being enough. So they tolerate what they shouldn't, accept what diminishes them, and slowly abandon their own values just to maintain a connection. This man does the opposite. He begins with himself. He knows what he stands for, what he allows, and what he refuses to negotiate. These are not rigid rules designed to control others. They are internal boundaries that protect his sense of self. And because those boundaries are clear, he does not need to constantly explain or defend them. His behavior communicates everything. What makes this so powerful is the absence of desperation. He does not cling to people out of emotional hunger. He engages fully, but he remains grounded. If respect is present, he invests. If it disappears, he withdraws quietly, without drama. This creates a dynamic that is both rare and disarming. People are used to being chased, to being persuaded, to being given endless chances, but they are not used to someone who simply steps back without resistance. For a narcissistic personality, this is particularly disorienting. They expect emotional dependency. They expect you to stay, no matter how they behave. But when faced with someone who values himself more than the relationship, the usual patterns fail. There is nothing to manipulate, nothing to anchor control to. And that absence creates tension, a pull that often turns into fixation. This man does not seek to be chosen, he chooses. And that shift alone places him in a position of quiet authority. He understands that access to his time, energy, and presence is not a right. It is a privilege earned through consistency and respect. And in a world where people abandon themselves to avoid being abandoned, the man who stands by his standards becomes impossible to replace. He becomes the prize. And this is not an act, it is a shift in identity. Most people move through relationships seeking approval, subtly asking, "Am I enough for you?" Their actions, their words, even their silence are shaped by this need for validation. And in doing so, they unknowingly place themselves in a position of inferiority, always reacting, always adjusting. But this man has reversed that orientation. He is not asking to be chosen. He is observing, evaluating, deciding. His sense of worth is not negotiated in the presence of another person. It is established long before the interaction begins. And because of that, he does not perform. He does not exaggerate his value, nor does he diminish it. He simply embodies it. This creates a subtle but undeniable shift in dynamic. His attention is not given freely. It is directed. His presence is not constant. It is intentional. When he listens fully. When he engages, he does so with clarity. But there is always a sense that his time and energy are finite and therefore valuable. This alone separates him from the majority, who overextend themselves in the hope of being liked. For a narcissistic personality, this becomes deeply compelling. They are accustomed to being the center, the one who is pursued, admired, and validated. But here, they encounter something unfamiliar, a man who is not indifferent, yet not easily impressed, someone who does not chase, yet does not withdraw out of insecurity. This creates a psychological tension, a desire to win over someone who cannot be easily possessed. And importantly, he does not declare himself the prize. He does not need to. It is revealed through consistency, through self-respect, through the quiet certainty in how he moves. There is no arrogance in it, only clarity. Because when a man stops seeking validation, he stops being controlled by it. And the moment he becomes the source of his own value, the world begins to respond accordingly. In the end, the one who does not chase attention becomes the one attention cannot escape. He understands the power of distance. And more importantly, he knows how to use it without turning it into a game. Most people fear distance. Silence makes them uncomfortable. Absence makes them anxious. And so they rush to fill every gap with words, explanations, or reassurance. But in doing so, they reveal something deeper, a dependence on constant connection to feel secure. This man is different. He recognizes that space is not a threat. It is a tool, not a tool to manipulate, but a tool to maintain clarity. When something feels off, he does not immediately react or confront. He steps back, not out of avoidance, but out of awareness. That pause allows him to observe without distortion, to see behavior for what it is, rather than what he hopes it to be. And within that distance, something interesting happens. Emotional intensity settles. Illusions begin to fade. Patterns become visible. While others are caught in the immediacy of feeling, he is operating from a place of perspective. This alone gives him an advantage that cannot be faked. For a narcissistic personality, this controlled distance is deeply unsettling. They rely on proximity, on constant engagement to maintain influence. They expect immediate responses, emotional reactions, continuous access. But when that access is no longer guaranteed, when presence becomes selective rather than constant, control begins to slip. The unpredictability creates tension, and that tension often turns into fixation. But it is important to understand this man does not disappear to provoke a reaction. He withdraws because he values his peace more than unnecessary conflict. His absence is not a strategy rooted in insecurity. It is a reflection of self-respect. He knows that not every situation deserves his presence, and not every person deserves his energy. Over time, This creates a dynamic where his presence feels earned, not assumed, and what is earned is always valued more than what is freely given, without condition. Because in the end, the man who is not afraid to step back is the man who is never taken for granted. He sees through the game, and that awareness changes the entire interaction. Most people sense when something is off, but they ignore it. They rationalize inconsistency, excuse manipulation, and question their own perception just to maintain emotional comfort. In doing so, they surrender their clarity. They become participants in a dynamic they do not fully understand. This man does not make that mistake. He pays attention not just to words, but to patterns. He notices the subtle shifts in behavior, the contradictions, the moments where intention and action do not align. And instead of dismissing these signals, he studies them, not with paranoia, but with precision. He understands that human behavior follows patterns, and once you see the pattern, the illusion begins to lose its power. What makes him different is not just that he sees, it is that he does not react impulsively to what he sees. There is no need to confront every inconsistency or expose every manipulation. He understands that reacting emotionally often pulls him deeper into the dynamic. Instead, he adjusts his behavior. He becomes less available, less predictable, more selective. His response is strategic, not reactive. For a narcissistic personality, this is particularly disarming. Their influence depends on confusion, on making you doubt yourself, on keeping you emotionally engaged and off balance. But when faced with someone who quietly observes, without becoming entangled, their usual methods begin to fail. There is no emotional chaos to feed on, no easy way to regain control. And importantly, he does not take this personally. He understands that manipulation is not a reflection of his worth, but a reflection of the other person's nature. This allows him to remain grounded, to act without resentment or the need for validation. He is not trying to win the game. He is simply choosing not to be played. Over time, this clarity becomes a form of power, not loud, not aggressive, but deeply rooted. Because when you see things as they are, without distortion, you move differently, you choose differently, and in the end, the one who cannot be deceived is the one who cannot be controlled. He is focused on purpose, not people, and this is what ultimately makes him untouchable. Most individuals build their identity around relationships. Their sense of worth rises and falls based on attention, approval, or rejection. When someone enters their life, they become the center. When that person leaves, everything collapses. It is a fragile structure, dependent on something that was never fully within their control. This man has anchored himself elsewhere. His life is directed by a deeper current, a purpose that exists independent of any one person. It could be his work, his craft, his vision, or a personal mission that demands growth and discipline. Whatever form it takes, it gives his life structure and direction. And because of that, relationships become a part of his life, not the foundation of it. What makes this so powerful is the stability it creates. He does not lose himself in connection. He does not abandon his path to maintain someone's presence. If a relationship aligns with his purpose, he invests in it. If it begins to pull him away from who he is becoming, he recalibrates without hesitation. There is no internal conflict because his priority is clear. For a narcissistic personality, this is one of the most difficult traits to influence. They seek to become the center of your world, to redirect your focus toward them. But when they encounter someone who's attentive, Nan is already committed to something greater, their leverage disappears. They are no longer competing with other people. They are competing with a purpose, and purpose is not easily displaced. There is also something inherently magnetic about a man who is moving toward something meaningful. His energy is not scattered. His decisions are not random. There is a sense of direction in how he lives. And that direction creates attraction without effort. People are drawn not just to who he is, but to where he is going. And in the end, the man who is driven by purpose cannot be controlled by distraction because he knows exactly what he refuses to lose.